Hey guys, welcome back to One Shot Reviews. My name's Sean, and with me as always is Nobody. This month we're going to be reviewing Don't Breathe and Don't Breathe 2, which is just now in theaters, but by the time I get this video out, it might finally have been pulled. Also, I've decided that this is now my review hat, so I'm going to be wearing this for every single review from here on out. You better hold me to that too. I'm counting on you. For Don't Breathe, I decided to... This was kind of like a last-minute review, because I was planning on doing an entirely different movie that I'll push to next month. However, I saw that Don't Breathe 2 was coming out in theaters, and I'm like, alright, I'm going to rewatch the first movie to get ready for the second movie. And even though I've seen the first movie before, it just kind of sparked inside of me, like, I want to talk about this movie. Even if it's not like a very planned review like I'm typically used to doing, I just kind of want to talk about it, and hopefully have you guys form your own opinions of it, and maybe go see it, maybe not. We'll find out. I will also try to make this as non-spoilery as possible. I don't even think that the word spoilery. Yeah, that's definitely a word. So anyways, I'm going to try to not spoil anything for you guys. So just kind of like talking in broad sensitive terms. The first Don't Breathe came out in 2016, and it was directed by Fede Álvarez. Again, I'm not good with these names. Why did I keep picking people from different countries? He's the same guy who directed the Evil Dead remake, which, though I don't know if I'll ever review it, I absolutely love the Evil Dead remake. I think it totally stands on its own. It's one of my favorite horror movie remakes of all time, and I definitely recommend anyone to check it out. But enough about that, let's talk about Don't Breathe. Don't Breathe is about the three people who are sort of unlikable in a way, they keep breaking into people's houses in order to make, like, kind of petty cash, and they want to hit just, like, one big score that they hear about to just kind of, like, move away from their crappy town. I can relate. So anyways, once they pick out this house, they find out, like, this guy, like, this old man won so much money in this lawsuit from years ago because his daughter died in a car accident. And he's just living in this crappy house, so they all think the money is still inside. So they break into that house, and they find out, oh, this man is also blind. They think it would be very easy. But once they get in there, they quickly find out that it will not be as easy as they thought. And the whole kind of thing of the movie is that this blind man it keeps him trapped within this house. And even though they should have a leg above him, he is outsmarting them in every twist and turn. And he is you find out in the sequel, he's a former Navy SEAL, so he knows what he is doing. Now, what's interesting about this movie is clearly the people we are rooting for, like the main characters of this movie, they're the bad people right off the bat. They are stealing money from people, they are breaking into an old man's house, they even hold him at gunpoint at one point in time, and this is a blind old man. And they are unlikable for doing that. However, this movie quickly, I'm not going to spoil it, they quickly show you that even though they're in the wrong, they are not the worst people in this movie. And I don't want to spoil too much about that, but as you can tell, the old man is the one who becomes, like, the bad guy of the movie. And, like, the things he does is, like, okay, he's kind of a despicable person, and I want, like, these unlikable people to now survive, because they're getting a bit more likable every second this guy is on screen. The old man is portrayed by StephenLang, who has been in a ton of movies for apparently a while. I don't think I've ever seen this guy young. And it's like, I've seen so many movies. He was in Avatar, he was in this show Terra Nova that I watched, playing, like, the old man character. And I was like, he's always been gray, he's always been just old. And then I was like, I'm just going to look him up. And no, apparently he's been acting since the 70s when he was still young. I've seen movies with him. Apparently he was Freddie Lounds in Manhunter, which I would not have guessed unless someone told me flat out, hey, that's StephenLang. Another great underrated movie that I think anyone should check out. But not enough time to talk about all those movies. Let's talk about Don't Breathe. There's not much more I want to talk about this movie, because mainly it's like the sequel that I kind of want to, like, get off my chest and give my opinion on it. But when Don't Breathe came out, I saw it in theaters, and I absolutely loved it. And I immediately bought it on DVD, and I've probably seen it twice on DVD before rewatching it now, so that might have been, like, what, 4 times? I don't know how to count. But it's a great movie with a lot of twists and turns, and it's very claustrophobic. And I want to say, like, some people die in the movie I didn't expect to die when they did. And it surprised me, which is a hallmark of not only a good horror movie, but just a good movie in general, when it can do things that you just didn't see coming, even though you've seen so many movies just like it before. It's definitely something different, and it made a ton of money when it came out, rightfully so. And if you can, I don't know, stream it somewhere, get the DVD, I would definitely recommend it. It's probably one of my favorite movies to come out in the last 10 years that's a horror film. But I mainly want to talk about Don't Breathe 2, because I had a lot of reservations going into seeing this movie in theaters. The main thing is, and again, not going to spoil anything from Don't Breathe, obviously the blind man is the bad guy in the movie. You quickly find that out once, like, crap starts hitting the fan. He is now the main character-ish, like, in the sequel. And based off the trailers, I was getting the feeling that, like, okay, they're trying to make him a sympathetic character now. But he does something in the first movie that, to me, is totally irredeemable, and there's no way he can be sympathetic after that. But the trailer kept pointing out, like, he's pretty much, he has, like, this little girl now. It doesn't say how he does it in the trailer. And these people are just trying to, like, break into their home and do untold stuff to them. And he's kind of like the savior of the little girl. So, again, they're putting him in a situation trying to make him get more sympathy compared to what he was doing before. And that's very problematic in a movie, especially like this, where it, like, feels very realistic. Because you don't want, like, you really shouldn't sympathize with the killer. You should never sympathize with Jason. Even though they would show him drowning as a kid, the moment he is starting hacking innocent people, he has no sympathy. The same goes with Freddy. Like, in the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street, when you find out, even though Freddy's very sympathetic, the moment you find out that, yeah, he might have molested those kids, it's like, all that sympathy is gone. And you just don't do that with your horror movie villains. Even though you want to, like, put some, like, an origin story that makes them a little sympathetic, but ultimately you can't feel sorry for these people because they are doing untold awful things. And since this is a very realistic movie, unlike Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, for example, this just feels like it shouldn't be happening, and it made me just feel uneasy thinking that we should, like, root for this man. I watched the movie. And really quick synopsis, like, kind of like what the trailer says. He has this girl that he found, and there was like a big fire explosion in a house, and this girl's all alone, so he decided to adopt her, and it was kind of like a surrogate for his daughter that died, that we heard about dying in the first movie. And then this takes place, like, untold amount years later, probably about like 8, 9, or 10, from the first movie. And he is living in a new house, and everything's going well. He's teaching her, like, how to survive and stuff like that. And you can tell he's, like, trying to be a good father, at the same time protect her from the harms in the world. From one, he doesn't want, like, her to be exposed to, like, the actual truth, where she came from. And they also don't want her to, like, the bad things that happened to her, like his other daughter did. However, bad things do happen to her. And it seemed really convoluted why everything was happening to him at first, but by the end of the story, you're like, okay, that it wasn't a coincidence that all this was happening. And that's as much as I'll say about that. A bunch of people try to break in, do harm to the daughter and the blind man, and then he kicks their butts, obviously. And it's much more realistic. It's not like he is, like, 100% on top of them. He is always in charge. He gets his butt kicked, too. It's just he's able to just survive these situations as he just keeps getting bloodier and bloodier. And with that, I was actually very surprised that the movie had, one, really good gore effects, but at the same time also kind of took, like, a realistic approach to some of, like, the fight scenes and whatnot, which, again, kind of, like, tracks with what the last movie did, but it's really good to see horror movies that take themselves seriously and not try to take themselves in a hokey way at all. But the main problem that I thought I was going to have was a movie that he was going to be sympathetic. It's slightly there. You are trying to feel, you do feel sorry for him in a way. However, I really do think the movie kind of makes up for it. Because at the very, not at the very end, but, like, as you get to the end of the movie, you can tell that he's not doing this to redeem himself. He was doing this to protect that girl. Whether or not he had any right to basically abduct her, whether or not he has any right to be the father figure, he wants to protect her because she deserves a chance at life, just like his daughter deserves a chance at life. And it was taken from her, and he's not going to let that happen again. And at the very end, 100% acknowledges, like, I am a monster, I have done awful things, I am not the good guy. And he doesn't try to, like, he doesn't, like, try to make amends for it, he doesn't try to like, make the daughter feel sympathy for him, saying, like, oh, I know I've done awful things, but I repent, I repent. He's just saying, I've done bad things. I know I've done bad things, and this is my ultimate punishment. But he does not want any of that to rub off on the girl, and he ultimately lets her go. So basically he admits to all of the bad things that he's done, and he knows that he's a monster, and he ultimately accepts his fate. By the end of the movie, I was sold on the whole premise. I was worried that I would be asked to sympathize with him, but ultimately I didn't. I just realized he was trying his best to get what he wanted, and in the very end he realized he has no right to take this because it is not his to take. And he just owns up to everything that he's done. And I really think that alone is what sold me on this movie. Now, again, in the heavy topics, it is a great movie with great effects, great action scene, and StephenLang can kick anybody's butt. He's one of the scariest old men that I've seen in cinema. And I hope he's in more horror movies, because I loved him in VFW that I watched on Shudder. Great movie. And he can kick butt at his age, and it's so impressive, and that alone is a special effect. But yeah, there's some good kills in the movie, and you get some, they know when to cut away, but they also know when to show stuff, like when he's, like, stomping, like, this one time he, like, glues a guy's whole face shut, like, his mouth and his nose so he can't breathe, so another guy has to, like, poke a hole into his jaw in order for him to, like, breathe. Very intense stuff, and there's times when he just goes berserk and just starts, like, wailing on a guy, and you can see, like, quick shots of, like, flesh flying off, and it's just so many great scenes, and it goes very, like, hardcore with it, which I love it, because it kind of, like, follows through as what was done, like, on Evil Dead and whatnot. Also, I forgot to mention, this movie was directed by Rodo Sayagues. He's like a writing partner of Fede Álvarez, and again, Fede Álvarez came back to do the writing for Don't Breathe 2, but he did not direct it. But basically, they have the same sensibilities, which is why they work together. And again, I did not pronounce that name right. I looked up a pronunciation before I started this review, totally forgot it. Oh well, don't feel like going back and changing it. Now, I would ultimately say if you can see Don't Breathe 2, if it's streaming somewhere, if it's still in theaters, please go see it. It is not doing too well at the box office, mainly because of COVID and whatnot, but also, I don't know, maybe people are getting a feeling like, I don't want to sympathize with this man, I don't want to go. Is that the reason I think there's a huge shift in the box office? No, not at all. But it's not hitting as hard as the first one does. I would have to think about it some more. It might be as good. I really loved it, and I'll just leave you guys with this. The main reason that this was a great movie is that this is a sequel that does not retread what happened in the first movie. It takes the characters from the first movie and does its own thing with them. And he goes in a whole different direction, and it develops his character. And that is something we do not get enough of in the horror genre. So I really applaud anyone to go see this, because it is a great movie, and you'd be supporting, like, a great horror sequel, which is very rare nowadays. Alright guys, that kind of does it with our whole one-shot review of this month. And then also on the Mr. Mayhem Movies front, we got Slaughter Lives Part 6, I believe, filming this week. Which, again, you might be wondering, hey, what about Part 5? Yeah, ask my editor. He's sitting on that one too. So, hopefully you guys get 5 and 6 back-to-back, but we'll see. All I'll leave you guys with is that Part 6 will be a indefinite ending to the Slaughter Live series, because we kind of want to take a break for it for a while. So it will kind of give you a definitive ending. So yep, tune in next month for my review of hopefully Mondo Cane, or maybe I'll just say screw that and review something totally different. I don't think you guys care anyways.